So in this video, we're looking at the risks and dangers of following a low FODMAP diet long term. And an alternative title for this could have been why getting symptom free does not equal having a healthy gut. And it's so important, not just for digestive issues that you're understanding this, but if you have a goal that is to age well, longevity, bone health, so bone density, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. If you have heart health goals and you want to have healthy cardiovascular system, lower blood sugar levels, then what we cover in parts of this training are going to be super beneficial for you. So I'm about to play you a training that I did with a fellow gut health dietitian on the team for our group, and yeah, I hope you find it useful.
So today the topic is the risk and dangers of staying on a low FODMAP diet long term. And an alternative title for this could have been why getting symptom free is not the same as rebuilding a healthy gut. Because I've actually been working on a presentation about this topic in more detail. And that was kind of the name I was leaning towards. But basically, yeah, the risk and dangers of staying on a low FODMAP diet long term. So if you don't know, my name is Joe. I'm a dietitian at Diet vs. Disease. We're a team of dietitians, nutritionists, mindset coaches, and gut-directed therapists, and we specialize in gut health and digestive disorders. And we do everything online, and we've had over 5,000 happy clients so far, and hoping actually to bring a client on this call a little bit later to share their story. So today I have the pleasure of hosting this live with Victoria. Do you want to intro yourself quickly?
Yeah. So I'm Victoria. I am one of the dietitians with Diet vs. Disease. I've been with Diet vs. Disease for 2.5 years now. With working with Diet vs. Disease, my specialty area is gut health. I do have a lot of experience in the gut realm, but more so in the hospital. Before this, I did a lot of clinical work, some outpatient. I have some eating disorder experience. And my favorite part about working with Diet vs. Disease would probably just have to be working with the clients, meeting new people, hearing their stories, and then watching them succeed and get to get their life back, essentially.
Nice. Well, let's try to unearth some of those stories or lessons you've learned with this topic. So let's start. Hey, so a common misconception is that when people restrict a lot of foods and food groups, and they do manage to get symptom free, they simply stay on that restricted diet. So if you think about a low FODMAP diet, it's probably the most common thing that people are doing. And that's actually split up into different phases. So people go on the low FODMAP diet and then they stay in the elimination phase because they feel great and they've got no symptoms. And then they're like, okay, well, my gut is healed now. Case closed. Now, that's not actually the case. That is turning out to be quite far from the truth. Now, Victoria, is this something that you does it happen a lot? Do you think that clients want to stay in the elimination phase, or what have you seen?
Yeah, I think it happens actually pretty quite frequently. I think it's natural too, right? When you're not feeling good for so long, and then all of a sudden you're experiencing symptom relief and you're feeling so much better. And then all of a sudden it's okay, well, now I'm scared to bring back foods, or I don't want my symptoms to come back. I don't know exactly what was causing my symptoms. So it's really common in that regard to want to stay symptom free. But also I feel like there's not a lot of information out there, or doctors go into the part of reintroducing foods is going to be important in the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd be guilty about having information that's largely about eliminating foods only, because we find that's what people are people want. First thing we want to do is help you to resolve your symptoms. So for a lot of people, step one is to follow a certain diet protocol, and that would be eliminating certain foods. For example, if it's a FODMAP diet, it's not always a low FODMAP diet that we're doing with clients. There's actually many elimination diets. That's probably the most well-known, arguably the most well-researched, and we get reliable results with it. And so, yeah, the problem with it, if you are eliminating a lot of food groups over a long period of time, it can leave your gut kind of in a weak state, you could argue, with imbalances, with deficiencies, which we could touch on as well. And that can cause issues later down the track and recurring gut symptoms as well. Now, the main thing is, though, that the issues down the track is not only gut issues. So there's so much, like I said, I've been making a presentation, and there's so much research now about the gut microbiome and how it's influencing all these other aspects of health that even for me, I'm like, is that real? I didn't know that. And so I actually want to share some of that with you in a moment. So make sure you stick around, because it's like we're talking about gut issues now, and the gut we'll be talking about the gut microbiome and restoring gut health, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. And researchers are calling the gut the second brain, and the influence it has on all these other aspects of health, which is getting spoken about more and more. But I want to make sure that everyone is aware about how important it is to re-challenge, reintroduce foods in a way, obviously, that isn't going to make the symptoms come back. And that's kind of the challenging part, or the part that requires strategy.
I think it's important to just get the point across of it's not realistic to stay on low FODMAP forever either, or any elimination diet in that regard.
Yeah. So do you mean in terms of just trying to live your life, or
just daily, yes, your symptoms affect your life daily in so many different ways. So many different aspects, those symptoms are going to affect your life. But also when you're so restrictive and you can't branch out of that after a while, that's going to affect you too. So like you mentioned, it affects so many different aspects. It's not just the food that you're eating. There's also a social impact, an emotional impact. There's other ways that it impacts your life, which is why it also brings an importance to reintroduce foods.
Yeah, right. So I think also people should be aware about, we talk a little bit about disordered eating. So just the fact that if you restrict for a long time, I feel like it can start to skew your relationship with food. Is that something that you see?
Yeah, so it does happen. It does happen pretty frequently because one, it can bring up a fear around food. So you're scared of foods then. So your relationship isn't necessarily, okay, all foods are good in certain moderation or certain portion sizes. It's, well, I can't eat this food because I don't know what's going to happen. So there brings a lot of fear behind that as well. But then you're also thinking about it all the time. You're also worried to branch out at all because of the potential consequences. And that could also be really isolating. So when you're restricted for so long, it could also kind of skew how you're thinking of things, which could in the future develop into disordered eating patterns, or worst case scenario into disordered eating diagnosis.
Yeah, it gets complex, doesn't it? There's a lot of moving parts. The main thing is you got the elimination phase, we get symptom-free. We need to re-challenge, reintroduce foods. Has anyone that's watching tried to re-challenge or reintroduce foods and had success with it or not? I'd be curious to know. I see some of your comments and questions. Kathleen says, your clients are in the USA. What does that say about the USA? LOL. Well, I think all Western countries are facing the same issues. I do think the US food supply has some extra issues that perhaps we don't have in Europe or Australia, but that's the topic for another time. Hi, Dawn. At what point would you know it is safe to get back to the other foods? And do you just jump back in or do it slowly? What do you say to that question, Victoria? What points is it safe to introduce foods?
So I would say if your symptom improvement is 75% or more, or for the majority of your time, you're going to be symptom-free. That's a good point to start reintroducing foods. And you're going to want to do it slowly, right? Because if you add everything back in at once, how are you supposed to know what your foods that are triggering you, right? So doing it in a very strategic way is really helpful. A lot of times it's also helpful to have a dietitian or a healthcare professional walk you through the reintroductions because there's so many other things that could impact your gut and could impact certain reactions. So it's helpful to have a second eye of being like, okay, what is contributing to my symptom that kind of appeared when I've been symptom free for the most part?
Mm-hmm. And how long? Someone's asked Tracy Collins, how long is too long? Like, because I'm here saying, oh yeah, if you are in elimination for too long, it can cause issues. How long are typical patients in elimination phase?
So generally speaking, you want to be in the elimination phase for 4 to 6 weeks. There are some instances where it can be a little bit longer, but again, you would really want to be being monitored by a healthcare professional because like Joe mentioned in the beginning, there's other things that it could start to affect, like your gut microbiome or nutrient deficiencies or things like that. So long term, it's going to be very individualized, right? So for some people, 4 weeks, that's efficient, where other people may need 6 or maybe even sometimes 8, but really any longer than that, you shouldn't really, unless it's like extreme circumstance.
Right. So 6 months, for example, restricting a lot of food groups or following a low FODMAP diet like strictly properly is too long.
Yeah, I would say it's a little too long.
Yeah. Or you definitely need to be you definitely need to be tracked because now we're going to the realm of like nutrient deficiency and certainly impacting the microbiome, which is what the research shows. So I do want to talk about the microbiome. I can see like most of you said explain a little bit, brief explanation. I do want to talk about that because when I was researching this stuff about what the microbiome is impacting and the other health issues, and I look into it and I'm like, is that for real? So like if you're someone who wants to like age healthy or has to think about cardiovascular health or blood sugar or arthritis, all these things come up, which I want to get to. And I'm just like, this is pretty much every aspect of health. And so I've now decided, I've come up with a new analogy. If you're having gut symptoms, persistent gut issues, it is like your body's check engine light. And so you can ignore that, but I wouldn't recommend it, right? Because eventually something happens with the engine. So it's and a lot of people do ignore the issues for a long time, and then they sort of seek help or they try to fix things by themselves. And it's like, did we really fix the engine or not? So I feel like if you're having gut issues and you don't fix it properly, it can lead to all sorts of other things. So quickly, the gut microbiome. It's basically the gut microbiome is like a community of microbes and bacteria, microorganisms that are in our large intestine. Okay, so that's what we mean when we say gut. It actually refers to the large intestine, or the colon is another word for it. And it has functions like helps with our immune system, defense against pathogens, energy metabolism, even like influences fat storage, vitamins, synthesis, like breaking things down and absorbing as well, and a lot of indirect roles, and also connected to apparently the way we think and can influence all sorts of things like that. And that's another topic for another time. But if you've heard about vagus nerve, you've heard about gut-brain connection or gut-brain axis, we also have all of that information, which is also new to a lot of us, but it's super fascinating. And so anyway, when the microbiome falls out of balance, okay, that's known as dysbiosis, and it happens as part of aging. You know, aging is like such a double-edged sword. We're fortunate to grow old, right? But your body starts to not do things as efficiently. Like for me, I have this shoulder injury that I get from my training. And I always say to people, if it was 10 years ago and I was like in my mid-20s, this would have healed. This would have healed, like, I think in 1 month, and I wouldn't even have to do anything. And I've had this for 3 years and it's like, is starting to get better. And I just feel like the body's just not as efficient. Or, like I get starting to get white hairs now in my beard. So my hair follicles are like just sort of breaking down. And so the gut microbiome, the lining of your gut, your digestive tract, it's just not as resilient. So we need to be mindful of that. Foods you used to not be sensitive to, perhaps they're bothering you now, right? So what's that about? There can be lots of factors, but one of the things is that we just have to be a bit more we need to be more careful as we're growing older, and we need to learn about this. It's more important to take care of it now than it was before, right? Because of these things. So as we age, that can cause dysbiosis, this upset in the balance of the gut bacteria. If we take a lot of medications, certain medications long term, that is an unfortunate part of, I would say, what a lot of people are treated to in the US healthcare system as well, is a lot of medication. And so that's something that can upset the microbiome, and it can be, repaired to a large extent or completely. So it's not all hope is lost, but just so you understand what can influence it. What else, Victoria? Maybe if you've got gut issues for a long time, that can also upset your microbiome. So having like sort of long-term low-grade inflammation. And then obviously restricting your diet, right? The main thing that we've spoken about. So, without going into the weeds, but let's say we're restricting a lot of fibers, and these are the food for a lot of the microorganisms that we do actually need and benefit from. But in an elimination phase of a FODMAP diet, we're actually removing those. And so doing that long term also can really affect the balance of the gut microbiome and cause a deficiency or a dysbiosis. Is everyone following me so far? Anything you want to add, Victoria? But I think
no, I think sometimes hearing like the microbes and the large intestines and things like that, it can be a little bit overwhelming for some people to understand. So the analogy I like to use with my clients is like, think of it as like an ecosystem. So think of like a forest. Every little aspect is going to play a role, no matter how small it is. And if something goes out of whack for whatever reason, like Joe said, it could be age, it could be stress, it could be medications, whatever it may be, the ecosystem's going to shift and change. So now that habitat for a certain particular organism might not be able to live as efficiently as it did before. So sometimes it's helpful to explain it that way for people too, just to kind of give it like an analogy.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. But basically, what happens in most people we speak to, microbiome is becoming far less resilient, more susceptible not only to gut issues but also these other health issues. So I want to show you what I mean. So normally I haven't prepared things like this, but I have. I'm working on this presentation, so I'm going to share with you guys. Let me know if you can see this screen. Do you see this, Victoria?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. So it's super messy. I haven't finished it. Like I said, I'm still making it. But I want to, and a lot of you I understand probably can't read this. I'm going to read them out to you. But these are headlines from either newspaper articles or online publications. And the two on the right are from the New York Times, and these other four are from Harvard Medical School. So really reliable, reputable sources. And this is just kind of just to give you an idea about what I'm talking about with why is this gut health stuff important? How is it impacting other aspects of our health? And why we're talking about you can't stay in a restrictive elimination phase long term because it can have other consequences. And the researchers are seeing that more and more. So we've got New York Times over here. The headline is, "A changing gut microbiome may predict how well you age. People whose gut bacteria transformed over the decades tended to be healthier and live longer." So really interesting about like they're just referring to longevity in general. This one is, "Germs in your gut are talking to your brain. Scientists want to know what they're saying. The body's microbial community may influence the brain and behavior, perhaps even playing a role in dementia, autism, and other disorders." Now, these other ones from Harvard Medical School, I think are really interesting. To boost cancer immunotherapy's fighting power, look to the gut. Study reveals gut microbes alter body's response to cancer immunotherapy. And I just think that's like, so these are all their articles are based off of research. So typically clinical trials, like a really well conducted study, but a lot of it's early research. So it's still sometimes, still in theory, you could say, but just for them to find results that say that your gut microbiome, or the balance of bacteria in your gut, can influence how well a cancer immunotherapy could work, I think is super fascinating. I'm just like, this is so interesting. This one says, gut check, how the microbiome may mediate heart health. I can't see behind my screen. Your cholesterol and other factors linked to cardiovascular health may be influenced by the bacteria in your belly. And then there's one underneath. The gut microbiome's role in skeletal health. Scientists identify gut bacteria linked to bone density and strength. So you can see, like, we're really like ticking off all the things that are important as we grow older, actually. And then this one here, changes to gut microbiome may increase type 2 diabetes risk. Research links specific species and strains of gut microbes to type 2 diabetes across populations. So it's really fascinating. Anything you want to add, Victoria, or I think I covered?
No, I think you made a point. Yeah, I think that's great. Like, symptom-free doesn't mean that some of these things aren't going on.
No. And I have another one that I gave it a full slide, but this is this is microbiome's role in osteoarthritis. This one I just thought was like so fascinating to me. So gut microbiome may be significant in the development of this common form of arthritis. So osteoarthritis is the most common form, and it's always thought to be, how do you get arthritis when you grow older? Well, it's wear and tear. We've always said it's wear and tear, and maybe that has a role. But I just want to quickly read out these parts that I've highlighted here. And this was from arthritis.org. You can go. It's like the main arthritis foundation in the US. So osteoarthritis was for decades mistakenly considered a wear and tear disease in which cartilage gradually broke down as a result of lifetime use. It's now known that chronic low-grade systemic inflammation, as well as inflammation of the synovium and other parts of the joint, are responsible for much of the development, progression, and pain of osteoarthritis. So inflammation of the synovium, which is a fluid in the cartilage, in your joint cartilage. And basically it goes on to say that the microbiome, they believe, influences and causes inflammation of the synovium and contributes to osteoarthritis. So it's not just wear and tear. Because I always wondered, like, I watched a show called The Blue Zones. The people who, the populations with the most people who live over 100 and older. And so many of them live in these hilly areas and they have to walk up and down hills to go to the shop, to go to church, to go to do all their everyday things. Or in Japan, they literally don't have furniture. They sit on the floor. And I'm thinking, and they work in farms, how are they and not having severe osteoarthritis? Because a lot of them do not have arthritis, but they have ultimate wear and tear. They're like 110 years old. So they've got 30, 40 extra years of wear and tear on them, and they actually live a lifestyle that's very physical, but they don't have osteoarthritis. So, that's just one observation, but I'd always thought about that. There's got to be other things at play. Anyway, does anyone else find that really fascinating? I think it's so interesting. And I hope that was useful. So last thing I'll say on this is that, if you're thinking about like healthy aging, maybe you've got cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure or high cholesterol, or blood sugar issues, pre-diabetic, or arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, even autoimmune issues, just stop and think, is my check engine light on? is there something here that I need to uh, give a little more time to? And is my gut health good? Are my gut symptoms under control? Am I managing that properly? Am I not being overly restrictive as well? So it is a real balancing act. We're going to bring on Tom now. So Tom, I'm going to admit you here.
Hi guys.
Hey,
Hi.
welcome. Thank you
My
for
fa-
coming on, mate. Great to have you. So Tom here was a client of ours. Let's start with where you are. You can quickly say who you are and where you are, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Sure. My name is Tom Bear. I live in Ohio. Basically, I found you guys through an internet search out of being extremely desperate.
Okay,
And
so let me pause you there. So I believe you Googled, you Googled something, you came across us there, which is how most people find us. So, Google is sometimes very useful. And can I ask you, Tom, what was the worst moment then for you before you worked with us? Like, how come you were desperate? What happened?
well, I've always had gut problems. I've always had issues with diarrhea and other IBS, IBC, IBD type symptoms. But it really got bad when I had a couple of bouts of colitis that were quite severe. I missed a week of work, and then in less than 18 months, I had another bout of colitis. And this was after all the okay, do a low FODMAP diet. Um, you have a wheat allergy, so eliminate gluten. And I tried all these things like to be healthy and to eat healthy and to do it on my own. And I just found myself floundering because what I kept finding is when you look up FODMAP stuff on the internet, you find, oh, an apple here is considered good. Over here, it's considered very bad. You shouldn't eat it. And those type of things where there's conflicting information. And I got desperate because I was like, I can't keep doing this. And the colitis it was very severe. I mean, everybody in the family, we were all kind of scared.
Wow. Yeah, wow. Okay. And so, well, we're very happy that you found us. Um, what's your life like now? What's the symptoms like now? What are you able to go and do that you couldn't do before?
Almost everything. I really, I still have some issues with some foods, and I still have to be careful. But I've learned so much from the program and from working with Victoria and Tim and all the people. I mean, I think I've talked to everybody on your staff just about because I'm that guy. You know, I'm like I want to soak up the knowledge from everybody. But I've learned so much about stacking, and I've learned so much about portion controls and paying attention to this might be an inhibitor for the DAO because I have histamine is what, so I apologize. It's kind of not exactly the FODMAP stuff, but because of that, I've found out there are certain things that just don't mix very well together. And to be able to put that together on my own, I would have never figured any of this out. I would have been lost and I'd still be probably waiting for my next bout of colitis to put me back in the hospital again.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an uncommon story, is it? Unfortunately. But that's the thing, right? Where you're buying time really when if you any program you join up. First of all, it sounds like you really value education, and also you made the most of joining, right? You, like you said, you spoke to everyone. You're really trying to get value and learn things, and you had an open mind, and you're obviously very coachable. And so a lot of the success is on you for sure because we're providing the information and the direction. But you're the one implementing. So kudos to you for that. Victoria, did you have any questions, Tom?
Yeah, my major question for you, Tom, is what did you enjoy about the program the most? And like what allowed you to be so successful with joining the program?
I think I found the best part of the program to me was the one-on-one, the individual being able to work with you, get to know you, get to understand you, and the vice versa. You getting to know who I am, understand me, understanding how my life is, things that are stressors that are external, because all those things come into play so much that we don't in general we don't put that together, because in general we're like, I have gut problems, it's got to be something I'm eating, and that's all we're trying to do is we're trying to fix the eating part, whereas the eating part is only one small symptom of the check engine light, as Joe mentioned. It's like when you go to fix your car, it's like, oh, okay, this sensor needs replaced. You go replace that sensor, and oh, by the way, this now needs replaced, and this now. And it's kind of like that, where you have to take a holistic approach. And I love the fact that you guys were a very holistic approach. The mindfulness portion of it was great. And the fact that you guys were all available almost 24 hours a day, there was somebody available that if I was having a problem, or if I was hurting, something was bothering me, I could reach out and there was always somebody there. And that to me was priceless.
I think timeliness of getting support is something that we identified early on was a big problem with the conventional system, and not for people lack of caring that work in the system or anything, but rather the bandwidth of how many people need help and how many doctors and dietitians and health professionals are available to help with that, and the system that they work in. And the conventional approaches, I don't know what your experience was, Tom, but like typically you might go and see the doctor and then they're either dismissive of the issue, or they do a test and it sort of doesn't really come back with anything. And then if they refer you on, you need to wait. And this is the problem. You need to wait 1 month, 3 months. Some people are waiting 6 months or a year to see the next person. And then can you imagine you see a dietitian, maybe you eventually find a very knowledgeable one on gut health, and then they identify, oh, hang on a minute, you have a histamine issue and I need to refer you on to the person who knows about that. Or, hey, Tom, you've got a lot of stress or anxiety. I think you benefit from some form of gut-directed therapy. I need to refer you on. That's another 3-6 months. You need to drive somewhere else. And that it's just too slow. It's too slow, especially for people who are in need.
Yeah, and it's never ending, because frankly, what's going on for me today may not be going on for me 6 months from now. So when you try to approach it 6 months from now and treat what was happening 6 months ago, it's not usually a very effective approach, at least for me. I mean,
so what was the so did you work with Jay or anyone on the mindset team?
I worked with Anastasia. She was my mindset coach, and it worked out perfectly because the yoga and the meditation and the mindfulness, that's the part that really I felt like kind of helped unlock some of my anxiety and helped me to get rid of some of that stuff. Because when you have gut problems, it's kind of like it's kind of like the snake eating its tail. It just keeps going around and around, because the stress leads to the gut problems lead to more stress, and it just keeps going in a vicious circle, where you have to kind of break the circle, so to speak, before you can actually start to get better on anything. And at least that's my experience. And so being able to kind of break that cycle and to get rid of some of that anxiety, then I found, oh, it's a whole lot easier for me to now do the journaling, it's a whole lot easier for me now to pay attention to what foods I'm combining, what foods I'm eating, what foods I'm not eating, and how they're affecting me. And the biggest thing for me, I mean, I'm not talking, I'm not telling anybody else in the world what to do, but the biggest thing for me was is I found out that alcohol kills me in even in the smallest doses. And I think that that's happened as I've gotten older. It becomes more severe, but I haven't been
Definitely.
able since I started, and I feel much better because of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but you sound very um, self-aware. I don't know if you were before, but I think that's also part of it, right? To be able to reflect on things, to be able to identify those things, and like you said, you almost for a lot of people they need to do a little bit of the mindset stuff to help them get to the next step, which may then be the diet change or the lifestyle change. And it's not always that way, but I think it is very common that people are stuck, with the snake eating its tail, as you said. What's
It
really
was
useful as well is that people, um, just to have someone else to come in and look at your diet and your symptoms and help you to connect the dots, because we're too close to it. We can't observe it ourselves. There's a saying that goes, your nose is 1 inch from your mouth, but you still need someone else to tell you your breath stinks. You still
yep.
need external people looking in to say, hey, do you see what you're doing there? Or have you not seen this pattern? And that's putting it simple, but for a lot of people who've had gut issues for a long time, that's just what it takes, and it takes multidisciplinary team and different people to help you navigate that process and turn something that seems complex and never ending into a pathway with steps and instruction that do make it simple. It's not easy to do what you did, Tom, but it is simple if you've got the resources and someone to guide you through and you've got the time, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I tell anybody who asks. And all my friends and family, everybody asks me about it because everybody's like, what's this program you're doing? Because when I tell them I can't eat that right now, they're always like, well, what? But I explain to them, I'm like, it's not easy, but it is quite simple because it's building blocks. A plus B equals C. And if you tear everything down to the studs and then you start building things back up, you find, hey, I can eat just about everything. Victoria, don't be mad, but I ate lasagna and I was okay.
You can have lasagna, Tom. You know that. Small portions, but within your thresholds.
We want you to eat the lasagna. The point is that, I like to make this point. I'm glad you brought it up, but it's like, we're dietitians. We do this stuff because we love food, not because we hate food. I want you to be able to eat lasagna. I want you to be able to go and drink if that's what you enjoy, obviously in a healthy amount. And if we can help you get back to that, then we've done our job. Because at the end of the day, we want to enjoy life, especially as we're growing older, and we start to think about these things more and more. And so we want you to eat the lasagna as long as you are aware of the quantities and what's going on and what you can have and what you can't have. Then I think we've done our job.
I think the biggest thing is just like the goal at the end of the day is variety. It's not removal. It's getting in as much variety as you can with feeling okay with it. So I think that's another misconception is like, oh, you're a dietitian. You're going to tell me I can't eat this, 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 and this, or you're going to be mad when it's like, no, the goal is eat as much variety as possible, not keep everything so restricted.
Yeah, exactly. Has everyone enjoyed this format? Did you like Tom on here? Make sure you give him some love and say thank you in the comments. because it takes courage, right, to come on and speak about your experience, and obviously, especially as everyone watching is aware, like if you've got digestive issues, it's not really something that is openly spoken about typically. And I think that's what I like about this group as well, is like trying to you know make it a safe space to talk about these things, because it does affect a lot of people, and you're not alone. We got a comment
Jeff,
here as well. I'll
Joe,
go on,
for
Tom.
you. I just want to say that you guys are number one in the number two game.
Yeah, nice one. That's I'll think about how I can work that into my marketing, right? I might put that and then put a little dash Tom Bear as the quote owner. We've got another comment here. It says, Tom's story is exactly my story. Your DVD program has saved my life. As Tom says, having a dedicated nutritionist dietitian. In my case, it was Nick Needs, who I love. Nick has been amazing, has really made it so easy for me. Joe, you and Nick in particular. I consider my saviors. Okay, well, I'm not sure if we're the saviors, we're the guide, but you definitely would have saved yourself money with the effort you've put in, and sort of being coachable and things. But thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Nick is great. Nick is a busy guy. I mean, he's worked with me since 2020. So and he's also an Australian as well. Yeah, Tom, look, everyone's saying thank you so much for sharing your story.
My pleasure. If I can help anybody, that's the only thing I can do now, is to try to give back, because you guys have given me my life back. And not to sound sappy, but I would not have found it without you guys.
Yeah.
So I realize I did the work, but if there hadn't been a beacon of light somewhere pointing me in the right direction, I'd still be in the dark somewhere right now, and I'd be miserable. So thank you guys. Really.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you, Google, for pointing us to one another. Oh, dear.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. And if you want to learn more about our premium one-to-one program, you can simply press the description or search below the video to apply with us.